I'm repeating.
So, hello everybody who's on Zoom. The meeting does not actually start until 7 o'clock and usually a couple minutes after. Not a long time after, but a couple minutes.
I don't hear anything. I think you were in
Oh,
Yeah.
you mean like when we were checking?
there. It says connecting to audio.
Yeah, but you're saying,
No,
is it?
yeah,
is
we
it-
stream live to YouTube.
Well, it
Yeah,
says-
so normally there's some feedback.
It's a little,
Yeah, I turned it off pretty quick, but it says it's live on YouTube.
Okay,
Isn't that what I was supposed to do?
yeah, I just normally we have, you have that? Okay.
Look at this is very high tech.
Weren't you here once before with us?
No,
Oh,
you've been here before.
You've been here.
yes, I've been here before, but not when we've had,
like not 2 weeks ago?
no,
Oh.
missed that one.
It is it's very interesting, this technology. And Teresa knows a whole lot more about it than me. She's gonna maybe explain it.
It's a teleconferencing system that has AI voice tracking, so the camera moves to who's never speaking.
To zoom on you.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. But we have a new system.
Where's the camera? That's the camera.
Yeah.
This is right there, okay.
So, close that window, Laura. So keep talking.
Yeah, I saw the top of my head.
Okay, so I don't think I let in everybody who was.
Steve?
Yeah, so sometimes it's hypersensitive to who's speaking. Here it comes to me. I like to tell this story. Last Halloween or pre-Halloween,
Yeah.
when they were had decorated the house for Halloween, there was a ghost thing hanging in the corner and it kept rustling. So the thing kept moving on to the ghost.
To the ghost. So if I play with paper collado, it'll come
Yeah,
to you.
it might, or
No,
not.
no, it's not picking up. That's smarter now.
Hi, Steve. I'm assuming I should make you a co-host because you're sharing the screen and you're muted.
Yes, I would like to give a short presentation during that one item.
Well, I've got my hearing aids in, but.
Okay, hang on. Our volume is very low.
Can you hear me now?
It
Yes.
wasn't you,
Yes.
it was us.
You're fine,
Now you're fine, and I'm gonna make you a co-host.
Thank you.
I think your marketing worked.
It's always great to have people at this meeting.
At the meeting. Okay, and it's officially 7 o'clock. Should we just go ahead and start? We have a lot of people here.
Yep.
Okay, so my name is Laura Myers. Welcome to UNNC's Planning and Zoning Committee meeting. I am the co-chair of this committee. I live in Angeles Vista and I'm on the UNNC board. And I'm saying that specifically because basically we have standing rules for committee participation. And at core, anybody who is a stakeholder and who attends a committee meeting, any committee, this one or others, is deemed a member of that committee for the duration of the meeting. And we do appoint our chairs and co-chairs. This committee makes recommendations to the entire governing board, but we can't take actions on our own. So, but in order to be deemed a stakeholder, you have to meet the criteria that the city council has established. And that is, you need to live can be a property owner or tenant, live, work, attend school, be a parent of someone who attends the school, but worship at church, own a business, within our boundaries. and or be a community interest stakeholder, and that is defined as participation in a nonprofit, for-profit organization which has a bricks and mortar address within the boundaries of the neighborhood council. So what we do, we have a lot of people here early, so the question would be, do we do it now or do it at the vote? What we normally do is kind of go around the room in the Zoom room, everybody introduce themselves and states whether or not they are a stakeholder and intend to vote. So let's just go ahead and do that. So my name again is Laura Myers. I live in Angeles Vista. I am on the UNNC board. I am a stakeholder. And if there was an action to be taken, I do intend to vote. So I'm just gonna move to our newcomer. There you are, because you're to my left.
My name is Kenny Sanabria and I live in Jefferson Park. This is my first time at one of these meetings and
You are a stakeholder.
I am a stakeholder
And you have no idea if you're gonna vote.
and I have no idea of anything yet.
My name is Chris Carlson. I am a resident of Western Heights, and I'm also the Area 4 rep for the area of Kenny Heights and Western Heights, and I'm on the UNNC board, and I am a stakeholder, and I will vote on issues tonight.
My name is Demetrius Paul. I live in Western Heights, lived there for 30 plus years. I'm obviously a stakeholder.
Hey everybody, I'm Teresa Masonette. I represent the West Adams Avenues on the board of the UNNC. I'm a stakeholder and I intend to vote if necessary.
Hi, I'm LB Nye. I live in Jefferson Park. I'm a stakeholder and will likely vote on one of our items tonight.
Okay, so now we're gonna go, so I'm gonna call you by the way I see the Zoom room, which may not be the way you see it at your home computer. So first is Heber Martinez. And you're muted. Everyone at this point can unmute.
Hello, my name is Eber Martinez. I live on Region 6, the bungalows. I'm a stakeholder, but I will not be voting today.
Steve,
Hello?
thank you. Steve, your turn.
Okay, I'm Steve Peckman. I'm a resident of Jefferson Park on 30th Street. I'm a stakeholder, and if there's something to vote, I will vote.
We're admitting John Arnold, who's co-chair of this committee, but he's not quite here yet. So I'm moving on to Ashley.
Hello, my name is Ashley. I live on West 31st Street. I'm a homeowner and stakeholder, and if there is a relevant topic, I intend to vote.
Sandra.
Hello, my name is Sandra Pruitt. I live in Jefferson Park.
Hi, my name is Sandra Paul. I am a resident of Jefferson Park. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you asking for Sandra Paul or Sandra Pruitt?
And I apologize. I don't know the answer, so we'll just go Sandra Paul, then Sandra Pruitt.
Thank you. Again, my name is Sandra Paul. I am a resident of Jefferson Park. If there is a vote that I can participate in, I do plan to vote.
And then other Sandra.
Hi, I'm Sandra Pruitt. I live in Jefferson Park, and I will be voting tonight.
Okay, I'm going to move on just over to John Arnold for a moment, let him introduce himself. And you're muted.
Rookie move. Hi, everybody. I'm John Arnold. Former UNNC board member. I live in Jefferson Park on 30th Street, and I am a voter.
Rosalind. And you're muted, Rosalind. Oh. Okay, there you go.
Good evening. My name is Rosalind Sherrill, and I'm in Jefferson Park. And I hope to vote if there is a vote needed.
Okay, thank you. I'm again moving on what I see. Steve Z and Robbie S.
My name is Steve. I've lived here in Jefferson Park for more than 30 years, and if there's a vote, I would like to vote.
I'm Robbie, Jefferson Park for over 34 years. and if there is a vote, I may be voting.
Hi, Betty, you're up and you're muted. Are you able to unmute? Okay, I will come back to you, this is to Betty Anderson. Karina Figueroa. Okay, and Karina, you are also muted.
Oh, sorry. It's been a while that I use Zoom. My name is Karina Figueroa. I'm in Jefferson Park, and if there's a vote that I need to submit, I'll go ahead and I'll do so.
Okay, again, I'm just scrolling down. Marina.
A resident of Jefferson Park on 30th Street for 20 years. I will vote if there's going to be a vote.
Okay, Michael Kimbrough, and you are also muted at the moment. Okay. So I'm going to move to Jean Frost.
Jean Frost, West Adams Heritage Association, nonprofit, stakeholder virtually as a nonprofit, will vote if necessary. Happy to see you all.
Yeah. Hi, Jean, I would say that the brick and mortar address for Waha is something like 300 feet from our border. So, and the other brick and mortar address, I'm not sure the city still considers valid. So for tonight, we'll say you're not voting if that's okay.
Well, that's not okay, but that's okay.
I know it's an argument and it is okay, but for tonight, let's say we're not voting, so we don't need to deal with the argument. V. Franco.
Hi, my name is Vilma Franco. I'm a resident at Jefferson Park, and I'll vote if needed.
Donna Jones.
Hi, Donna Jones, West Adams Avenues. I am a resident stakeholder and will vote if needed.
Okay, Steve Wallace.
Hi, Steve Wallace, Harvard Heights, stakeholder. I will vote if needed.
Okay. Mokai, I'm gonna mangle this.
Along.
Okay.
Alogam.
And he is by chat telling us that he lives in Jefferson Park, but he's currently in Sweden. Okay then. Welcome from afar.
You're up early.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Vincent Liu.
Hello, I'm a resident of Jefferson Park, and I'll vote if I can and if needed.
Thank you. Sarah Long Henry.
Hi, I'm a resident, but I'm also a member of the board, but I live too close to vote on anything anyway.
If you were voting on the Jefferson Park item, but if we're having, I don't think we're having a vote, but if you were planning to vote on Crenshaw Light Rail, you're not too close to that. What Sarah's bringing up is conflict of interest. So it's true, when you live too close to something that is on our agenda, you should state your conflict of interest and probably not vote. Cherry? I can't, I'll get you, Jim, but I've got one more before Jim, and I'm pronouncing it wrong. Judge Sherry? Or I will go to Jim Childs.
Yes, good evening. Jim Childs. I am not a stakeholder by definition. I will not vote, but I do have some comment and observation. Thank you.
Fine, that's great. And again, everyone is able to fully participate in our meetings, but the voting, the motion
Jerry's
is
on.
off mute. Okay, hi, Cherry.
Hi, Olga Shastri here. I live in Jefferson Park, and if needed, I will vote.
Okay, and can you pronounce that one more time so I don't mangle it ever again?
That's okay. Shastri.
Shashari.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Very pretty name. Okay.
Thank you.
So what I'm going to do right now is hopefully share the agenda for everyone to see. And
You have transcripts on?
I will check transcript in a minute. I mean, it should be because it's recording. So for our agenda, and you probably have all seen it, we have, what we just did, welcome, call to order, voting affirmations, review of the agenda. Then we have general public comments. Unfortunately, I did get an email today on item 3, the 7-Eleven, where they're once again not coming and asked to defer until October. So the only thing I can say about that is I will check with the planning department to make sure that waiting until October to take action will still be in advance of any public hearing. Number 4 is draft EIR for the Crenshaw LAX K line, so the light rail, northern extension. And then, hang on, train. And number 5 on the agenda is the follow-up to case number ADM 2024-174, blah, blah, blah. But the affordable housing project proposed at the corner of Jefferson and Western, and Steve Peckman will lead that discussion. And we always have follow-up to previous cases, old business. ENS is the city's notification system. So we do, if there is any follow-up, we do that. And that is the agenda. So I'd like to ask if anyone, so also I should say for those of us who are here in the Zoom room, we can look at each other, but
Just do it tomorrow.
we should also be looking at the screen because they're in the room with us together-ish. Okay, so does anyone have any general public comment on any item which is not on the agenda and also which would not be just follow-up to a previous case? So Jim.
I did it already.
Oh, that was her thing. Okay.
And now if you could all mute yourselves, please, except for Jim, who I called on.
Yes. Good evening. This is Jim Childs, ad hoc. I wanted to give the west side of the community an update on what's going over here on University Park in terms of the litigation on 806 West Adams, our scenic highway. Some of you may have been born and remember 2018, where Bob Champion, formerly of USC, decided to bring a project forward for 100 5-bedroom units on 806 Adams Boulevard, totaling 1,000 USC students. And the city said there was no impact and it was categorically exempt. The community gathered its forces, appealed through the process, got nowhere, and took it to court. We lost at the trial court. We prevailed at the appellate court. Bob Champion decided it was worth taking to the Supreme Court. So we sat at the Supreme Court for 8 months waiting for them to make a determination of whether they would take the case or not. Brings us up to 2024 in our 7th year of this process. And the Supreme Court has decided to send it back to the appellate court for review. So my anticipation would be that maybe in 25 we might get this resolved, which would take it into the 8th year of negotiations on a categorical exemption for a project. And this is the way the planning department moves developers through the system. So I would advise anybody who has a problem and can get together a case that's legitimate and can find attorneys to sue. Because the only solution we have is no longer goodwill or cooperation. The only solution is litigation. So good luck and carry on, but that's where we are over here. Thank you.
Thank you. And we don't discuss public comment. Oh, you wanted to discuss it?
No.
Okay.
I have a public comment.
Okay.
You're not allowed to.
Right. And Heber, we have other raised hands.
Let them all go.
I know. I'm just not sure who besides Heber has their hand up.
Yes, hello. Hello, my name is Albert Martinez. Once again, I raised my hand just because I wanted to go and be considered for the vacant at-large UNNC board seat. So I just wanted to make that public comment, and I had my intention of going to the executive committee meeting on August the 20th. Thank you. Have a good day.
Teresa. Hello, Heber. Thank you very much for your interest in participating on the board. Have you completed the application? Okay.
Was that your comment?
No. I just wanted to know you have to submit an application. Yeah, there's a process.
Yes, okay, I'm pronouncing it wrong because I was saying Hebrew. I think you said
Heba.
Heba came to governing board. So that's, he's the person Hunter's been.
Communicating with. Okay, good.
Hey, Teresa.
Thank you, Laura. So recently I spoke to a couple of you community members about what it is to be a part of the Planning and Land Use Committee, not as a stakeholder or a participant, but as a member. So there seems to be a controversy with that. So Department of Empowerment is looking into that and is doing an investigation and will make us compliant with other neighborhood councils. That's my comment.
Okay. Is there any other general public comment? No. Okay, so again, we're gonna table 7-11. Sorry for those who came for that item, if anyone. And we have, again, 2 items. I'm thinking we should do the Jefferson Park, the affordable housing one first. And see who might want to also discuss the Crenshaw light rail draft DIR. And I will say, for those who, okay, I'm seeing a chat that is distracting me. For those who are unaware, and we will come back to this, the light rail train line that currently stops at Exposition and Crenshaw and links up to the east-west is going to be, in some of our lifetimes, sent north to hook up to the Hollywood Red Line. Construction wouldn't start till maybe 2041, but there's a station right at Adams and Crenshaw.
Right, so we're gonna.
And we'll talk about it later, but just if you think, oh yay, I get to leave, that might be of interest to you, even though we're gonna flip the order. So instead, we're gonna follow up to the case number ADM 2024-174 DB VHCA ED1 at 2075 West Jefferson Boulevard. And Steve Peckman's gonna lead this discussion. I just wanna say a couple of things on that long bit of language, and I mean, all the alphabet soup. The VHCA stands for Vested Housing Crisis Act. So in other words, a housing proposal. And what's happened is that a letter has been issued by the planning department with, it's called a compliance letter, and Steve's going to discuss that.
But before you do that, I would just like to acknowledge Adele and Rick Burke.
Sorry.
They said they were not called on. We see that you're there and that you're in Jefferson Park and you'll vote if necessary. And then also, what is the age requirement for signing, and how do you have to be there in person? For we don't know what you mean by signing. We vote just by raising our hand. So if
technically, you don't have to be there in person, but technically you're supposed to be in Los Angeles County. And you already told us you were in Sweden. But in the future, if you don't tell us where you are, we would never know. But yes, you have to be not present, you have to be in LA County under the new state legislature's laws. Okay, Steve.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Let me see if I could share screen.
Yeah, I had given knowledge.
I just have a short summary presentation to give. And hopefully I can do that. Here we go. Find my presentation.
And you might introduce yourself while you're looking.
Okay, sorry. Oops, that's not what I wanted to share. Hang on a second here. Stop share. I need to. So I'm Steve Peckman. I'm a resident of Jefferson Park for about 20 years. I've been participating in this committee for about that amount of time and have been involved in discussions regarding the Burger Palace site. Let's see if I can get this to work. There we go. Okay, so thank you all for attending tonight. I know 7 p.m. in the middle of the week is not easy for a lot of us, so it's very much appreciated. So since a lot of people don't know all the background about this project, I'll start out with a little bit of background and then talk about where we are right now. So this is the developer's rendering of the Burger Palace building that they want to construct at the corner of Arlington and Jefferson. I'll start out by saying that the Jefferson Park community stands second to no one in support of housing. We believe that all Angelenos should have access to quality housing. So the issue of being opposed to housing is not the issue here. So this is, for those of you who haven't been at Jefferson and Arlington, this is what's there right now, and it is called Burger Palace. It's been there a long time. A lot of folks in our community really like the food that they provide. And this is what it looks like in the northwest part of the lot, which is a parking lot, and then an alley, which then abuts a bunch of single-story houses. So this project is proposed for 6 stories. It's a solid cube that goes from lot line to lot line. There's no transitional height really from north to south or east to west. It's 100 units, 100% affordable, except for 1 unit, which would be the manager's unit. So what kind of review is done normally? Since this intersection of Arlington and Jefferson is part of the Jefferson Park HPOZ, which folks in Jefferson Park struggled for many years to get the city to acknowledge the historic nature of our community and how it represents through its architecture the important history of folks who lived here. The HPOZ was created a number of years ago, and when someone wants to do something to a building within the HPOZ, whether it's a contributing structure or not, it goes through what's called the Historic Preservation Overlay Zone process, which is governed by the LA City Department of Planning. We are also governed by the South Los Angeles Community Plan Implementation Overlay Zone, CPIO. With the passage of new state legislation to address the housing crisis across the state of California, per state law, developers who are doing 100% affordable housing have by right to pretty much construct what they propose, according to developers, and are entitled to administrative approval by planning, which means it doesn't go through the HPOZ standard process in Jefferson Park or any other HPOZ, and it's not addressed by the HPOZ board. There's no right to appeal of the approval, and I'll get to that in a minute. It waives all the California Environmental Quality Act or CEQA requirements, and it waives other standard required reviews by the HPOZ and the CPIO, which are there to promote the overall health and sustainability of the community and the folks that reside, work, and recreate in the community plan area. So the housing crisis, whether you agree with it being a crisis or not, and whether you feel that affordable housing addresses that crisis, is being addressed by the state legislature, and they've passed laws that require waiver of these local rules regarding development. So the project itself, as I said, is 100 units. They do not really fit into the planned space. They eliminate a lot of quality of life elements from the project and far exceeds the maximum allowable number of 37 units under the standard plans. The open space, the standard required for such a project, would be 10,125 square feet of open space. This is reduced by the developer by 92% to 836 square feet. The request is not in compliance with the LA Municipal Code, but it we'll get to the approval process in a minute. Unit size, the units are extremely small by pretty much any standard. Most lack closets or space for typical furnishings, even possibly including a bed. Parking is reduced by almost 90%. I guess it is 90% at this point because they would otherwise be required to have 145 spaces. This has been reduced to 12, according to the recent application that was reviewed by planning. And this was from the previously submitted 17. So the reduction is based on the developer's concept that it's unlikely that the residents will have cars. And of course, that's the presumption of the state of California as well. So as everyone who lives in Jefferson Park knows, this will result in a serious negative impact on the residents and the neighbors who already live with a very serious parking shortage on 31st and 30th Streets. This will also negatively impact the other businesses on Jefferson that rely on street parking for their clientele, because that street parking will be taken up by residents. Trees. Proposal had 44% reduction in the required numbers of trees. Trees are typically required because they both beautify the neighborhood and help reduce the climate impact of the project. And then finally, respect for neighbors. In order to achieve the 100-unit density, the developer seeks to reduce the standard setbacks to allow for the proposed building, the 6 stories, more than 71 feet high, and massing of the building is out of scale with the adjacent 1-story houses that you showed in that you saw in the picture to the north, and the historic 1 to 2-story streetcar commercial buildings to the east, west, and south. And finally, it's inconsistent with the zoning for the lot, which is 1 V as in Victor, L as in Larry, or very limited height district, which is standardly limited to no higher than 45 feet. So this building is going to be out of scale and out of mass with everything else within the HPOZ. So it's also going to result in permanent cast shadows on the neighbors to the north who are in a single story house zone, and it's going to reduce their quality of life greatly. So what did the planning department do? The developer submitted a package that was reviewed through this ministerial review, right, the non-appealable review, pursuant to all the state declarations about the emergency housing crisis and the mayor's own declaration of local emergency. And it was approved with pretty much everything that the developer requested. So there were three items in the approval that I'd like to address. 2 of them. Number 14 in the approval is the Community Plan Implementation Overlay, or CPIO. As I said before, we're part of the South LA CPIO. And prior to the issuance of any building permit, the applicant must demonstrate compliance with the objective planning standards of the CPIO. So I'll get back to what objective planning standards are in a second. And number 15 requires essentially the same, that the applicant will demonstrate compliance with the objective planning standards of the HPOZ plan. Pursuant to ordinance number 184903, I call that out because that will also become important. So objective versus subjective standards. According to the California law, a design standard that involves no personal or subjective judgment by a public official and are uniformly verifiable by reference to an external and uniform benchmark or criterion available and knowable by both the development applicant or proponent and the public official prior to submission. So essentially what this is saying is that planning and other people who would make a decision regarding an application cannot make any subjective judgments about the design standards. So the WHA architectural firm did a presentation to the League of Cities Planning Commissioners Academy of March last year, and they kind of mapped this out in lay language. Objective standards are black and white, they're streamlining review, and it's a measurable, quantifiable, easily defined, and enforceable standard. Typically has the word shall or must in the standard. A guideline, in opposition to a standard, would be subjective. It recommends, it uses words like should and requires interpretation. So an objective standard would be true or false. Either it is this or it's not that. It's about counting and measurements, it's ratios and calculations, etc. And this is essentially, though this is by WHA, it's essentially reflective of presentations that Ken Bernstein, one of the lead planners in city planning and one of the heads of the Office of Historic Resources, which oversees HPOZs, has been telling HPOZs for at least the past year or so. So the LA Municipal Code, the law in Los Angeles that covers HPOZs, has a section called Certificate of Compatibility for Non-Contributing Elements. And the purpose of that section is to ensure the compatibility of non-contributing elements like the Burger Palace, that they maintain the character of the preservation zone. And this would be also applied to any construction or demolition taken in a manner that does not impair the essential form and integrity of the historic character of its environment. So in section 1A, L1A, it says a request for certificate of compatibility shall be reviewed for conformity with the preservation plan for the preservation zone. And then in 4A of that section, it says the design of new construction shall, note that word shall be contextually compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features of nearby structures in the preservation zone. So this is the governing law for our community. And notice it's not a subjective statement here, it's objective according to the definitions provided. And so remember, objective versus subjective, a design standard that involves no personal or subjective judgment. And it can be uniformly verifiable by reference to an external and uniform benchmark or criterion. Massing, size, scale, and architectural features of nearby structures in the zone, at least in my mind, are subjective and are easily and uniformly verifiable by just going into our community and looking what's there. And it's also actually quite clearly spelled out within the preservation plan. Unfortunately, our preservation plan is filled with a bunch of shoulds and will you please and a bunch of other not objective standards, because at the time we wrote the plan, we wrote it with all the shalls in it and musts and required. And the Office of Historic Resources in the Department of Planning told us that they would not approve the HPOZ if we had objective standards. They required it to be subjective. And so we're kind of in a bit of a pitch here. This is a picture. It's not a very good one. It's not really in perspective, but here you see the north side of the alley, the single-story houses, and what the new construction will look like, placed relatively close to where they cited in their proposal, and how it will impact those neighbors and beyond. So I'll just go back to this again. We'll be writing a letter, part of the community, to planning, because planning actually has to, as you saw per the approval, has to ensure conformance with the objective standards of the HPOZ. And this is clearly an objective standard. Now, in order to figure this out, I talked to the lead planner, who is the signatory on that approval letter, Mr. Theodore Irving. And he was generous enough to spend some time with me on the phone. And he noted three things. One is that this approval is administrative. The applicant must comply with all elements of the approval. If there's any attempt to deviate from any of those elements, the administrative approval is revoked and the applicant must go through the standard processes. He also said that, and I also talked to CD10 about this, which is that there's not much the city can do, its hands are tied, and that it's up to the state legislature to ensure that these things don't happen in communities like ours. However, I'll note that the mayor, Karen Bass, has issued an executive director, it goes back a year or so, which quasi-protected HPOZs when it was first issued. It's gone through 3 amendments. The current amendment definitely protects HPOZs, but it is not retrospective or retroactive. So because this application was submitted prior to the amendment to the executive directive, it does not fall under that new amendment, which would have protected us against this construction. So all of the elements of the construction, including the planning, have been the parking have been approved. It seems to me the one thing we can hang our hat on is the massing size and scale of this proposal is not consistent with the zone and is easily verifiable by planning. So that's what I have to present. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, Steve, this is Laura, and I have a couple of questions. I mean, I know both you and I spent many hours writing the preservation plan, but I don't remember this. Does it state how much open space? I mean, in other words, quantifiable objective standards include, if it says it, must have 30, even if it says must or should, but if it says 30% open space, it's the 30% open space is also quantifiable and objective. So that's a for example. But also, didn't they, so the CPIO may also have some of that language. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it. And lastly, wasn't there another later on 17 or 19 where they're requiring 20 or 25 trees?
Yeah, so there are more trees required than were proposed, and I don't know how that happened. But anyway, I'm not going to focus on the trees for the purpose of this discussion because it's really about whether the project should be built in the size and massing that's proposed.
Well, no, and I agree with that, and that's what our point has been for some months. But yeah. I'm trying to figure out if there are, since they have to meet the objective standards of both the preservation plan and the CPIO requirements.
Yeah.
Have you picked through that, or is that still something?
I'm still picking through it. The CPIO, I did a general review back in March for the previous letter that we sent. And that UNNC also supported. Right. But I haven't had a chance to go through it given the details within the approval. Within the plan itself, I'm still going through it. Almost everything is should. And I have to say, in previous arguments with OHR about other proposals, Ken Bernstein was very clear that anything that has a qualified statement like a should is cannot be used in terms of the 100% affordable housing.
Yeah, I understand. And Jean has her hand up, but I'm going to wait, one more moment before calling on her. The letter, just for everybody, this LOC, the determination letter, is 96 megabytes, something like that. So we cannot upload it to our agenda packets for everybody to read. That's why there's a link in the agenda to the letter, which is in a Google Drive.
Just to be clear, the determination isn't taking up all that megabytes, it's the proposal.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying UNNC are unable to upload it. Well, I guess we could if we just uploaded the letter part of it. So we'll try and do that. Okay, so I see 2 hands raised in Zoom. We usually take comments here first. Okay, Jean Frost.
Thank you, Steve. I thought you had a really good presentation with a great deal of clarity. But it also should be noted this letter of compliance has a 90-day window of challenging the letter of compliance. There are other projects where the 90-day window has passed, but not with this one, certainly not with many others. So we should be aware of that. We are in the process as West Adams Heritage and as neighborhood organizations and supporters of HPOZs with trying to go through some kind of process. And no one is clear on this at this point. And there are many communities in addition to West Adams that are facing the exact same challenges. So we are struggling and coming up with trying to find answers, even though it is not appealable per se, where there may be some strategic avenues to raise the issues. And we're talking to a lot of different people. Anything we find out, we will share. It is ludicrous that there should be a letter saying, and the applicant must demonstrate compliance with the HPOZ, and then it doesn't go to the board. It doesn't go to anybody that knows the plan and knows the neighborhood. And the fear is it will face the kind of check off, redevelopment plan check off, HPOZ check off, CPIO check off, without any meaningful analysis or inquiry. So, I mean, that is a ludicrous way to enforce a preservation plan, and it ought to be, this letter is contingent upon review and ideally review by the HPOZ board. I think this is a struggle, and we're with you every step of the way, and any good leverage I will share, and I will share with Laura and my other colleagues. But I thought your presentation is really excellent.
Thank you, Jean. I just have one question, which is, you mentioned this 90-day response period. There's nothing about that in the planning determination letter.
Yes, in the letter of compliance at the very end, it says, it means you have 90 days for a judicial action.
I see.
It's not like city appeal. It's judicial action. So it's in the end of the letter.
Okay.
Okay, but Jean, what does that mean, judicial action?
It means
But I understand you have to, but are you able to do the normal citizen CEQA style lawsuit, or is this a big deal lawsuit?
I can't answer that question. As soon as I have an answer that makes sense, I'll share it.
All right, Jim has his hand raised.
Yes, Jim Childs again for ad hoc. This is we've had our HPOZ for 24 years now, and there's been lots of problems, and recently lots of problems, and most of them coming from OHR as opposed to from developers. And this whole nonsense about subjective interpretations of objective standards resonates here, because we were informed about the same issues about keeping it soft rather than shall and suggestive, so that people would have a better response to the criteria and the issues before them when we did the HPOZ preservation plans. And to have that language that we put in at their request to be turned against us and used and weaponized in the manner of which they're doing is outrageous, and it's more than offensive. This is negligent on the part of the stewards' responsibility of OHR to protect the HPOZs, not obliterate them. And I will tell you this, that if one goes in, then more will follow. And they're spotting these in the other HPOZs, in my University Park HPOZ, in the specific plan, in your HPOZ, and in the Adams Normandy HPOZ, and this is not by accident, in my opinion. I don't want to sound like a hysterical conspirator, but the obvious is that this attack on the very existence of HPOZs that depend on the collective enforcement of everybody adhering to the standards, because once those standards are broken and you no longer have any assurance that you will not be living next to a 6-story building, there is no reason to invest in any HPOZ. So I think there's a monetary question here that we all as homeowners and property owners and renters need to address, and that is our loss by this intrusion because it destroys the very concept of what the HPOZs were founded on, and that is collective success. So I don't know what you can do individually, and I want to thank Steve for doing a tremendous presentation, because I've been going over this as well, and it's very hard to make it as clear as he did where you are and where you need to go from here. I think we're all flailing around looking for an answer, but we need to find an answer. There must be an answer. I cannot believe, after being involved in this stupid thing on Adams Boulevard for 8 years, we can't together and collectively, and I mean all the HPOZs, find a solution that gives us the protections we deserve. So I'm sure there's a chink in their armor someplace. I just don't know where it is and how to get it exposed at this point.
Okay.
I'm at risk.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you guys for dealing with this at the neighborhood council level, because this is where the voices can be heard. So thank you for this.
Thank you, Jim, for those thoughts. Laura, if I may, I'm
Sure.
going to have a proposal when the comments are done. But before we go to Sandra Pruitt, there was a question in the chat. Maybe I could get to that. That's been waiting.
Sure.
So the question is, there are vacant lots to the east of the Burger Palace where a building burned down. Yes, unfortunately. And there is an abandoned house. Are those lots part of the project? They are not part of this specific proposal. If not, could consideration be given to lower the scale of the project by extending it to the vacant lots? Sure, they could if they wanted to also buy those lots as well as the lot that they're on. I think we have to deal with the proposal we have and not one we don't have.
Right. Okay, so I have 3 raised hands because one's here in the room. I'm going to go to Chris in the room, then Sandra, then John Arnold.
I know that some HPOZs have specific preservation plans. I also know, as a member of Western Heights, that lacking a specific plan, the default is to the federal preservation standards. And that's what Western Heights and Harvard Heights were.
Harvard Heights has a preservation plan. Western Heights never adopted one.
But then we were combined with Harvard Heights.
Right, but you each do your own, so you're stuck with a.
But my question goes to, at the federal level, is it a language of shalls, or is it a language of mays and cans?
Right. That's a good question, Chris. For better or worse, Jefferson Park has an HPOZ plan that's been reviewed and approved by the city. Unfortunately, it's a plan that was modified by the city to be subjective rather than objective.
Right, and she's saying, what about the Secretary of Interior standards? That's what you're talking about. They're definitely subjective.
Yeah, the Secretary of the
beyond
Interior
subjective.
is subjective. Well, yeah,
Well.
it's subjective. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sandra Pruitt.
Okay, great job, Steve. You explained it quite well. Thank you. So my question is, are we proposing, I guess I'll wait for you to answer this question when you do the proposal. I'll just wait. And also I was thinking about the lot that the question asked on the, because if this was set like a precedent in this area, if they're able to build this 7 foot on a corner, then maybe down the way, they'll also be able to build another building. But overall, I wanted to say that my mom used to say that you can't fight City Hall, because even as far as Ladera Heights, they're having the same crisis happening. It's looking to me like they want us to have more renters than homeowners. and they're trying to condense so many people into these square yard footage because of the quote unquote affordable housing emergency.
Right.
You see?
Yeah. So I'm all about fighting City Hall, so I have no problem with that.
Well, John's next, but we ought to be clear that this program, the ED1 program, is not limited to very low income or extremely low income. This particular project is, it says 79 units is low income, but low income, even though we think we know what it means, actually means in the city of Los Angeles, an individual whose income is at $65,000 a year. And moderate income is higher than that, like 100,000, 120,000. So while this is really a program to create more rental housing, which we need, but we shouldn't be deluded that it's gonna solve a homelessness problem. Anyway, John's next. John Arnold.
Hey, everybody. Probably most of you know that I'm an architect, and what I do in my life is multifamily housing, and most of it's affordable housing. So I'm very familiar with all the issues going on here. You also probably all know that I'm generally pro housing, and I'm not afraid of size and scale. So I'll just put that out there as my opinion. There's been a lot of opinions flying around so far tonight, so that's my opinion. That said, I have no love for this project. It is really, really ugly. It will be a detriment to the city as a whole. It is bad quality, as Steve pointed out, and this is my opinion, bad quality housing. I have my doubts that this project will ever get built, but that's also my opinion, because even affordable housing has to have a market, and you can't market really bad housing because no one's going to want to live in it. That said, it's not being dug yet, it's being entitled. So that's entitled means it's permissions from the city. So it's unfortunately in this case, it's not City Hall that we're fighting, it's the state capitol. So no matter what, so ED1 in this case, in my opinion, is the issue, because ED1 didn't exempt HPOZs from not having this project, but getting a design review. If this project had gotten design review and went through the HPOZ, it would still be the size it is. Believe me, the city cannot go against state law to reduce the size of this building, because state law that was passed 3 or 4 years ago says if you have 100% affordable housing and you're in a transit rich area, which we are, there's very little non-transit rich areas in UNNC, you get to take your base height and add 3 stories and 33 feet. So even if there was a subjective 3 stories max in Jefferson Park on Jefferson, you add 3 stories and 33 feet. That's state law. You can't do anything about it except vote your Congress people out and have them change the law. Believe me, that is the case. That said, what ED1 did was exempted HPOZ review. So not only did we get a large building, we got a really ugly large building. It had no professional design review. It had they stripped down HPOZ down to a series of material changes and lines. And the fenestration is wrong. I was on the I've been at HPOZ boards 15 years. Everything is wrong about this building to make it at least somewhat pleasing, because 6-story buildings did exist in 1920 and they did look okay. And this isn't a historic resource that we're talking about. It's a non-historic parcel. So that said, my argument would be is that ED1 failed. And also the new version of ED1 just came out 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, and they no longer exempt HPOZs from this review, from a review process. It doesn't mean HPOZ board or the planning department or anyone can lop off 3 stories. It won't happen because you'll get sued by the state. The city will get sued by the state. So my argument would be and this developer clearly didn't care. They did not care. And that's what that bothers me as much as the bad building, because a caring developer could have made this building work. It could have been okay. It could have been, it's still going to be big. Jefferson's a corridor. It's a commercial corridor. It's not an R1 zone. It butts up against an R1 zone, and there's transitional heights that take care of that. But one of the incentives this project didn't ask for, only asked for a tiny little bit, was the transitional height. So what I want to say is that, to me, the place where we can be most effective is to get a really thorough design review, because state law will protect this project from being no smaller. I would like it to be, I would be okay, my opinion, if it was the same size and half the units, and the units were better quality. That at least we're getting better housing, and it might not be a failure of a project, because they could build it, no one wants to live there, the rents go down, it turns into a chaotic not only an eyesore, but a nuisance to the neighborhood, because it doesn't have people who care about it. So that's where my beef is, and that's where, so I would recommend, if you're taking any action, to just be wary. Don't put all of our eggs fighting state law, because we're not going to win, but we can win, I believe, and this is, I think there's a chink in the armor, Jim, is to get design review to make this a better building. And unfortunately, the city of LA has no standards, zero standards for closets and unit sizes, et cetera, et cetera. Other cities do, but we do not. So, but that's a marketing thing. Anyway, I'm going to stop there, but that's a lot of opinion and a few facts, but thanks.
You already go.
My question was about the federal standards.
Oh, you did. I'm sorry. My brain is.
It's okay.
So there are a couple of questions in the chat. One person asked, I know this doesn't solve the current problem, but as a parallel action, is there the possibility for future concerns to update the Jefferson Park HPOZ preservation standards language? Boy, that's such a great question. So I've actually looked into that, and the state law is written in such a way that if you didn't have the objective standards to begin with, there's a period of time by which you cannot, by state law, update your standards to make them objective. Right, so they're protecting the developers, attempting to anyway, in every possible way. And I forget what that timeline is, if it's 5 or 10 years. If someone knows who's in this meeting, you could say something. But we're not allowed to change the standards now and activate that. The next question is, if every neighborhood gets to object to these affordable projects, LA will have no affordable housing built. Perhaps a step down type building toward the neighbors' houses or adding units on those adjacent vacant lots would be in order in general. However, I support this project. We need more affordable housing. Okay, well, thank you for that. Are there any other questions or comments?
Well, I want to comment on the comment. This is Laura again. The part of the problem is we do support affordable housing. We
absolutely.
Here in UNNC, or broadly speaking, here in West Adams district, which incorporates all of these neighborhoods and more, we have built and built and built and built affordable housing over the years, and especially in the last decade. We're good with affordable housing. It's the other 33 community plan areas. So our area has 2 community plans, the South LA community plan and the West Adams, Baldwin Hills, Leimert community plan. Both of those went through community plan updates that were completed in 2017 and 2018. And we added lots of unit count and lots of regulations regarding affordable housing and the CPIOs when we did our community plan update. So we're good to go. We have gone, we've built the housing, we're continuing to build the housing. Other neighborhoods, or that is other community plan areas, in particular West LA, which is fighting tooth and nail against their own community plan updates, they're fighting against the affordable housing. They're back, just fighting against it, fighting against upzoning, fighting against the notion of building the affordable housing in quote opportunity areas. And I've been on these citywide meetings where they say, no, you should just build them in South LA where they need it. And it's like, well, we need opportunity areas and jobs too. We need commercial revitalization. We all need everything. And we're not trying to turn down all affordable housing. Other communities are trying to turn down all affordable housing or most of it. So it's a conundrum, and I think, Steve Z, most of us probably agree with you. But what we're getting at the moment, and I think this is a blip, because the mayor did rewrite her emergency directive. So we have this little blip of projects that aren't going to be really precedent setting because they're already gonna go away. What they are is gonna be standing out as different. And it does feel, somebody said earlier, like, let's not be conspiracy theorists, but there is like one for each neighborhood. It's like weirdly, there's one in Harvard Heights, one in Angeles Vista, one in Adams Normandy just to our east, one in Jefferson Park, one on Adams Boulevard, one in North University Park, one in University Park, and it does feel maybe like it is kind of testing how far can you go. And that does sound paranoid, I apologize, but each and every one of the projects I referred to, with the exception of the one in Harvard Heights, is non-compliant with the HPOZ. The one in Harvard Heights, we had a presentation on that here, was in fact compliant with the HPOZ. Okay, so now I seem to have triggered lots more hands, so I'm sorry.
And it's 8 o'clock.
And it's 8 o'clock. Well, Steve Z and Robbie S now have raised their hands. I don't know which of you will be speaking, but I'll call on Chris.
Hi, this is Robbie. I would be interested to know of those neighbors and stakeholders. If it was your world, would you agree to this project of any kind at all at this location? And if so, what would it look like? For example, I heard Mr. Arnold say it needs some character. I would like it to fit into the ambiance of the neighborhood. So I heard that and I can agree with that. But of those people who have spoken and commented, I would like a little bit of clarification. Do you think that the project shouldn't be built at all? Do you think it would be okay, but it needs to be less units? Like what? I understand and I hear the HPOZ argument. So putting that aside, do you not want the project at all? Well, I'm repeating myself. So I don't need to hear everyone, but would a couple of people be willing to, if it was your world, what would this project look like? Or be honest and say, I don't think it should be in our neighborhood.
Well,
so Robbie, maybe I could just use presenter's prerogative here and I'll let other people speak. I'm gonna make this short. Jefferson Park has never opposed affordable housing. What we've had concerns about is massing and scaling of that housing. And so there's never been a concern here about not in our neighborhood. The question has always been whether we will get buildings that are actually part of the neighborhood or stand out like carbuncles and are disproportionate in both size and scale to our neighborhood. I'll let other people speak directly to your question.
I'm going to do more prerogative. And Robbie, this proposed building has no open space and it has no trees. It is not a healthy building by the definition the city has put forth in its ordinances. So I think what we're all, those of us who've been doing this a long time, want to say is we don't want to warehouse people. We don't want them to live in a room that has no closet and maybe no room for a bed or much of a bed. We want quality housing. And that's what we've approved. So Marina and Ashley, but Marina had her hand up and it fell off. So I'm gonna call Marina, then Ashley. Sorry. And then I wanna also point out it's 8:06, we're not done. We're not trying to cut anyone off, but we can't go on forever either. So Marina, then Ashley.
So I'm just trying to put together comments that have been made. From what I understood from Jean Frost, we would have 90 some days to sue, to take it to court. But from what I understand from John is that in terms of height and scale, we would have no basis in court because the state law is written against us. So I guess I'm just all
Well,
questioning.
yeah, Marina, it's complicated. A general project, if it's not compliant with zoning and things like that, the state law does allow a city to turn it down, but this is 100% affordable. So there's probably a thing where you can't just turn down because you don't like it, and 100% affordable.
Right, but I think specific to Marina's question is that we would have to consult with a qualified, experienced land use lawyer to find out what the grounds could be. Right, it's not a done deal. I appreciate John's input, but John's an architect and he's not a lawyer. I think he would agree with that statement, and that it would be important for a land use experienced and really well-qualified land use lawyer to weigh in on what the options would be legally.
Right, okay, so Ashley is next, then Jean.
Hi, also speaking specifically to Steve and Robbie's question. I live on 31st Street on the north side in one of the single family homes that would be directly impacted by this project on the alleyway. Currently, as it stands in the alleyway, we have a large population who typically congregates in this alleyway from the apartment buildings mid-block. I think with the density that is currently proposed, there would be a serious concern that would increase because there is little public space available within the building. Additionally, my neighbors directly to the west, for example, have a short parking, don't have much parking. They have a short driveway and are renters. There are multiple people who live in that unit. So you can see the parking dance that happens on the street already on a regular basis for them to find space on the street to accommodate their vehicles. So specifically to Steve C. and Robbie's question, I could be in support of this building and I am supportive of affordable housing. What it would take for me to be supportive would be adherence to the pre-established height limit and additional parking and development more in line with the already pre-existing regulations. I recognize that because this is a fully affordable building, that many of those regulations are superseded. But to specifically answer your question, and specifically from someone who would be impacted, that would be my position.
Jean.
Yes, I think it was Marina raised the legal issues aren't fully fleshed out at this point. I know the city position is there is nothing we can do. There is nothing we can do, period. But there are some things we can do, but they're not fully fleshed out. Ironically, had this been submitted at a later date and subject to the current ED revision, it would go to the HPOZ board and it would have design corrections and elements. And people like John Arnold would have some say, and you would have a better project. In this instance, Arlington Heights does not have it. Jefferson Park doesn't have it. There are at least a dozen other very similar, very impactful buildings. There are elements like what is the health and safety impact of this? There are provisions in the state law that are not all encompassing, but they're very case specific. So I don't think it's as black and white as it may seem, but again, it's an ongoing struggle to find, what are the issues and what ought to make this not ministerial. And even the earlier version of ED1, Karen Bass's memo said it's not ministerial, it's not eligible if it applies to all of the provisions of the code or specific plans. In essence, an HPOZ is a specific plan, but the city doesn't necessarily think so. So, I mean, there's nuanced arguments that I think that are important to make. And I'm very happy that Steve has a really kind of point by point methodology of moving forward. And, we're here to help you move forward and share any nuanced bit of information we get, because, we're talking to this city, we're talking to, a lot of different people. But yes, it's complicated and I don't have an answer yet, but I want to urge you. Years ago, I was walking with about a CRA proposal where the committee who was advising had no power. And the land use person from the council office said, you may have no power, but you have to act as if you do. And I think as you go through this, you will find avenues that we don't know yet.
Okay.
So Laura, I think this is a good opportunity for me to provide my proposal. Thank you, Ashley and Jean. I think those were both important comments.
Hang on one sec. Wait, Jim.
It's a short
Jim, you've already,
proposal.
I know, I had a hand up. Jim, is it okay if Steve goes forward? Because I saw your hand go up before Steve said that. But can we move on with Steve?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, thanks. I'll come back to you if needed.
So we're going to move forward with a letter to Ken Bernstein at OHR about the actual ordinance restrictions and the importance of OHR to review the project contextually compatible with the massing size and scale, as well as the architectural features of the preservation zone, since that is an objective standard. And push forward with that. And as we did 5 months ago, it would be great to have UNNC's support.
Okay. You have not written the letter yet, though, right?
I'm in the process of drafting it, but since this meeting is tonight, I thought we would come forward tonight.
Got it. I'm sure we'll have UNNC support, but we have to
make a motion.
Support a thing, but we have to support a thing that we don't have to.
Right, so my recommendation is as soon as you have your letter prepared, Steve,
we have another meeting in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay, because I was gonna say bring it to executive, but.
No, we have another meeting in 2 weeks before, and then we meet on September 5. So we actually have another meeting on September 4. We have 2 more meetings before governing board. I'd rather it not be waiting until September 4, but it could.
No, I will provide it for the next meeting.
Okay, and again, I don't think I have time because we haven't gotten to updates, but we have a hearing on the 14th. We have a letter to write, we have another letter to write about Wilshire Toe, so I don't think I have time to kind of go through the CPIO and see where it has objective standards.
I'm going to do it. So I'm going to include the HPOZ and the CPIO. And to whatever degree I can.
Yeah, and there is also the redevelopment plan, but I will say it has very few objective standards, but it may have a couple. It may have a couple.
I will look at it. Anyway, we'll come back with a letter for the next meeting.
Okay.
I'm not one to back down on this kind of stuff, and I'm here to battle City Hall on things that I believe in. I believe in affordable housing, but I also believe that our community is entitled to respect and that the people who are going to live in that building are entitled to respect.
Okay. And given the timeline, I'm back to, it would be great if you not only drafted a letter, but if you, as a corollary, drafted UNNC's support letter for that letter.
I'll give my best shot.
Okay, because we have become so poor at moving quickly at writing letters, as you know.
Okay.
So, and last but not least, request, can you email me this presentation you made tonight so I can upload it to the packet? Because the Brown Act. Yeah. Says, yeah.
It's a beaut.
Is that what, who?
It's really good.
It's a great
it was
presentation.
excellent. Thank you very much,
But
Steve.
even if it was terrible, I should upload it to the packet. But it was great. Okay, are there any, Jim, do you need now to come back, for me to come back, or are you good? Oh, you went mute. Are you good?
I am good, but I want to thank Steve for his effort, and I want to at least let everyone know that you're not alone. This project isn't singular. And it's nice for John to talk about it being on a major artery and therefore big buildings are okay. But in the other 3 instances here in University Park, they're all in mid-block and 2 of them are in National Register districts.
Yeah.
So the process that this project is being approved through is being approved on those as well. And inherently in the objections is the fact that it's wrong, period. Not that it could be better and that it's a state law. You're losing focus. So please keep focused on what's going on and understand this. There may be an opportunity or a calling out for HPOZs and other interesting parties to work in a collective litigation. I have no idea what that means yet, and I don't know any idea for sure that that would happen. But I cannot stand by and watch individual HPOZs in West Adams be picked off one at a time and abused beyond any reasonable. It was bad enough when they did the ADU.
All right.
This is ridiculous. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Jim. And I will say, that's an individual comment. Neighborhood councils do not join in litigation, just there, but we might support other people's efforts, but we do not join in litigation. Okay, so we're gonna move backwards up the agenda to the draft EIR for the Crenshaw LAX K-line Northern Extension. And a draft EIR is a very technical document.
You have the graphic?
I do. Forgive me while I look for what Teresa pointed out properly I should be providing. That doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem right. Let me try a different one. That may do.
Yeah. Close on that out.
I need to share. So anyway, basically what's happening is that,
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry. All right, let me just.
Okay, you're gonna.
Well, I just want to be able to move some of this stuff over so we can.
Well, I don't know how to get rid of that right-hand column.
Oh, really?
Maybe that's the way to do it. And then how do we zoom in?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Do you mind? I can go. I have to go with my mom at church.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so
problem.
much. So interesting. Thank you so much.
Great to have representation from
Thank
Jefferson
you.
Park.
Yeah, in person.
Yeah.
There were gonna be more that came because I was
Well, a lot of people
talking about the
came.
neighborhood.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so can you guys see the screen share?
Dolores, can you see it? I see that you're here, Dolores or Steve. Can you guys see that?
Hello?
Anybody?
I can see it.
Oh, thanks, Donna.
Okay, so basically the little dot in the purple, and there's some better images we can go down, that's Martin Luther King, and that's Crenshaw. So what you see going higher from that is Obama, that's the existing intersection.
Where are you?
Yeah.
Up here?
No, here, where you were, exists right here.
Okay, just move your mouse around it so we can.
Yeah, right here, where it's 2 dots at the end of the purple, that's the intersection of Crenshaw and Obama or Exposition. That's where the east-west line currently
And the K line.
and the K line
Exposition
intersect
and the K line.
and it ends, the K line ends. So what they're going to do is take the K line all the way up to where you see the bright red near Hollywood Boulevard. They don't know which of 3 routes they're going to take. So most of what they're concentrating on in their discussion is the various kinds of environmental impacts of choosing one of those three lines. One's on La Brea, one's on Fairfax, and one goes much farther west and loops back. And they're also discussing whether or not it's gonna go to the Hollywood Bowl, because that's a whole other construction issue. So no matter which of the routes that it takes, they will be having a station at Adams and Crenshaw. And it will be on the south side of the intersection. They don't know yet if it's the southeast side or the southwest side. And I think if I scroll down farther, we'll get a bigger image. But, so but I'm having trouble paginating. Let's just do this. Okay. This should, oops.
Let me just.
Take me back up.
Just a little bit there.
So it's not much better, it's a little bit bigger. Yep. Yeah, it's still not really showing us. So there's some more things. So anyway, basically they're gonna purchase one of the two gas stations. Either the gas station on the southeast corner or the gas station on the southwest corner, but go all the way out to the next street. So either to Bronson or to Victoria.
Okay.
Now, across the street on Victoria, right across the street, and if John is still here, he knows, that's the new headquarters for AIA-CLA, but it also is identified in the CIR as a historic building.
Yep. Okay.
So my hunch is they may go east, just to avoid the construction impacts.
But
the
on the
shaking.
south side, right?
On the south side,
Right.
either way.
And I think that mobile, the gas station.
That's the one with right now planning to build a car wash.
Right.
So I would hope it won't matter, this is 2041.
Yeah, okay, but that mobile mart or whatever it is right now, that is going to be.
One of the two choices.
Yeah, okay.
One of the two
Pretty
choices.
soon it's gonna be, yeah, I don't know what they're putting there. I mean, I know you said a car wash. but I
Yeah, the
think I
car
saw
wash is
something
on
else.
they're keeping the mobile station and adding a car wash.
But they're removing the little mart, the little
I think so.
Kmart, yeah, or whatever,
Okay.
shop mart. Yeah.
So there's hundreds, if not thousands of pages on this draft DIR, so me trying to share the screen on all of it doesn't seem particularly feasible. So I will say I've identified a couple issues, starting with they've listed who they've consulted with. But they did say PS, what they really mean is they sent out letters to a bunch of organizations and they haven't heard back from any one of them. And it was 2 pages of lists, including all of the neighborhood councils except UNNC that are along the route, so that's a weird oversight. But also including West Adams Heritage, which I will answer, we didn't notice the letter and didn't respond, now we will. They've failed to include a mention of the West Adams Terrace HPOZ, even though they mention other HPOZs.
Right, but on that side, it is not the HPOZ on the south side wall.
No, I understand, but they're doing the whole route. So construction could shake the hill.
Oh.
Right, I mean, in other words, they've listed every HPOZ along the route, even when it's underground.
But 2 things they have omitted, the UNNC and the HPOZ, the West Adams Terrace.
Right, which
So why is that, and who do we need to write to, or should I call
Well,
someone?
that would be part of our comment letter.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's like, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
you indicated that you sent out, first of all, you sent out letters to all these organizations but received 0 comments. Well, did you follow up? And again, sometimes a thing outside our concern, but from a historic cultural point of view, they're proposing 5 historic buildings on Hollywood Boulevard to be demolished. But they haven't heard back, I don't even know if they put Hollywood Heritage, I imagine they did, but they haven't heard back from them. So it's sort of a weird oversight, I'm just saying.
Right.
Number next, they've also are assuming that the setting we see today is the setting in 2041. And you all may remember, anyone who's been around any length of time, a decade or more, there is a Crenshaw streetscape plan. It's an adopted plan that requires anybody who's building anything to be planting a lot of trees and doing a lot of upgrades to the streetscape related to infrastructure, lighting, all of that. So most of it's not yet in place. And they're making the assumption that that simply will never be in place. They don't even mention the Crenshaw streetscape plan, which is a mandatory thing. This is objective and not subjective. It was very clear. And so I'm troubled by that because they will be tearing up the sidewalks along Crenshaw in our area, is what they're showing. So it's like, I feel like they need to evaluate what the potential impact would be and how would they be mitigating it. So that's just another oversight. They've defined impact as only 50 feet from any particular thing. And yet the construction impacts, they're going fairly deep underground. So I don't know if that makes it less impactful or more impactful in terms of vibration. So they're identifying vibration as a potential impact, but they're only looking at impacts up with 50 feet on either side, which is not even the depth of a single lot. So they're really exploring only the street facing lots. So that's pretty much what I saw in my first quick go around. Steve Peckman has his hand up.
Thanks, Laura. I think it's important to have a train that goes north-south.
Yep.
However, I am concerned about impacts not only on people who live there, but businesses. In this plan, is there a plan to mediate problems for both residents and for businesses? I know that was a big concern on the Crenshaw line regarding helping the businesses, and clearly it's going to impact homeowners and residents as well. So does the plan include anything to address those issues?
Well, and here's my unfortunate answer. There's something like 20 main documents, meaning chapters, and another 20 appendices. So I can't yet answer that question. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I didn't get that far.
Because I would hope that
words,
if they're not doing that, that's something that absolutely needs to be addressed.
Yes, right. And I was going to say there is one more thing that they're not addressing. Under the land use chapter, they're looking at what is the current zoning and is the station where, the various stations, would the stations be compatible with the current zoning? So that's appropriate for them to look at. But what they're not looking at is how would the construction of a station, again, where our concern is Adams and Crenshaw, what would the impact be on our current zoning? Because the current nearby zoning on the UNNC side, so east, is single family primarily, not completely. It's residential. There's some commercial, there's residential, but a lot of it is single family residential. And John he'll have a better idea, but is it 1 mile circle radius or 2 mile radius of a station where the zoning becomes a TOD, which is transit oriented district? Well, you're mute. You gotta unmute.
Who knows what state law will do, but under 2024 current state law, the TOD, TOC designation with the blue circles that shows up in Zemus is mostly void in the city of LA because they also have a thing about parking and higher oriented buildings for they call it high VMT, high vehicle miles traveled. So anyway, in La Brea, all the streets that they're going under already have frequent buses on them. So there won't be any upzoning because of the train, unless it goes through some street that doesn't already have it. And so Crenshaw has it, La Brea has it. I'm not sure about Fairfax.
Okay, so there won't be pressure to upzone the little R1 and R2 in Jefferson Park.
Who knows? I mean, but by that
I
time,
know, will
our
we
one
be
lot might be
alive when
worth,
it happens?
well, our one lot might be worth $5 million and worth way more as a development
Yeah.
property. I don't know. We can't tell. But the train, if the buses stay the same and state law stays the same, which are big ifs, a train shouldn't affect this area because it already has high quality transit.
Okay.
Chris had her hand.
Chris had her
That
hand up.
addressed my question. Thank you, John.
Okay, and then Sandra Pruitt has her hand up.
Okay, just a little tidbit. The south side of Adams is Jefferson Park.
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely know that it's
Wow.
Jefferson Park, and
Yeah.
I really have the feeling that they are going to use the southeast corner, because they were also showed on some of these plans that the next intersection, 29th and Crenshaw, so that'd be the northeast.
I don't know why nobody called
You
911.
know, where Chef Marilyn, Donna, remember you said Chef Marilyn was losing her space?
And set up a fire.
Okay, never mind. Anyway, Chef Marilyn is losing her space, so that's that parcel. They're showing potentially as being the staging site. So if they're gonna stage there, I don't know why they're not gonna just acquire the whole lot.
That's good.
Yeah,
No, this, between me and Chris, it's all good.
right, but also the liquor store. I'm saying there's a liquor store.
Near the Chef Marilyn and that.
Exactly. So they're showing that as a construction staging. And again, this is that's not why Chef Marilyn may have lost her space currently, let me just say that. But it does feel like the whole thing is up for sale now, and that's why they identified it, not the gas station, but the southerly part. So there will be real impacts. I feel I won't be alive, I think, but people will.
August the 10th, they're having a meeting at Dorsey High School.
On this, yeah. Okay, so
Metro is.
Metro is. So again, on your agenda, I put learn more, and it's a link to the source.metro.net, and then blah, 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 blah. But it's gonna have, it will have all of these documents, but also it has information about the public hearings or the public workshops, whatever it is. So technically, for those of you who have ever responded to a draft EIR, any comment you make, as long as it relates to CEQA, they have to respond to. If you make a comment that I don't like it's I think buses are better than trains, I mean, something like that, they don't have to respond. But anything, and I think, Steve, I'm not sure about the economic impacts, if that would be considered as a proper CEQA response, and that's why, we have to look at this more closely to see if they now include chapters on that. Because it may be that that's considered a side issue and not a CEQA issue.
Yeah, I think you're right, except for some reason, I thought that economic impact is a part of CEQA. I'm not a CEQA expert.
Yeah, not in the past, but it might have been added because that would be just and equitable to have added it, if I'm saying that right. And then the other thing to know is that any of the land that they do acquire, Metro acquires, will end up being a Metro joint development project like we saw at Expo and Crenshaw, but probably not that big. It's not the intersection of two things, but they don't then just sell the land to random somebodies. They will keep it. So I'm still not sure, and from my skimming through this document, I did not get any answers about how they think they're gonna drop down so quickly below the freeway. But the whole route, the whole thing is underground, with the exception of the stations. So either the escalator system at Adams and Crenshaw is going real deep, or the train has a really sudden drop to get under that freeway. It doesn't really say, but it has to go under the freeway. So it's interesting. Anything else? Okay, so what we had done at governing board, because September 5 is the deadline and we don't think that that's immovable, and our governing board meets on September 5 unless they mean 11:59 PM on September 5. We will draft a letter. We can bring the draft letter back in 2 weeks, and then we will send it to our executive officers for approval and submission, because we won't have the ability to do it at board. Okay, yes, ma'am.
You mentioned impacts, but I think it's also important to also highlight that it will also be benefits to have have very accessible, high quality public transit, within our neighborhood, and particularly one that connects to such a now growing coherent system, is a real benefit to our current and future residents, particularly those who don't have parking.
Right, no, I'm just, this is an EIR that we wanna make sure actually properly evaluates and recognizes, because it doesn't say this, and recognizes that the built environment that they're looking at today isn't necessarily the built environment, 10 years from now, which would be a more relevant time frame. And I think we can say that. I mean, especially if we suddenly do have a great tree canopy by then.
Decrepit housing.
Well, we might have a really great tree canopy by then.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we can hope. And if that's the case, we don't want it to be removed. So, okay, updates, do you have?
No, but I do, yes, old cases or follow-up cases. We recently had 2 cannabis organizations.
Yeah, and I got your emails and Josh's email. I don't know that, we had never done a cannabis case at planning and zoning.
I think
that
we should
that
bring
doesn't
them
mean
in
we should, yeah.
and talk to them and find out. I mean, especially having 2, that means maybe there's some competition happening. And how do we feel about having cannabis organizations?
And do we have, and I don't know the answer to this, do we have any ability to have it? Yes, are they allowed by state law by right?
They might, but this is an opportunity for us to share our concerns, the elements that might be around cannabis, security. Are they gonna have security? Many of the cannabis along Pico have security guards outside, or just to find out how they plan to function in the community. So if we can have them, especially since they reached out to us, if we can invite them to come in.
Right.
I think given the recent expose in the LA Times about the unsupervised pesticides and contamination of the commercial cannabis is something that should concern anyone in this neighborhood or in the state for that matter. So unless, as well as things like security and safety, there should be some insistence there be a quality control verification, because that's coming into our community.
Right. I mean, for all they could be an organic organization, I don't know, but I would just like for them, we please schedule them to come in.
Yes, and I see a hand up, but all I was gonna say is, we went through the spring only having 1 meeting per month, and it's biting us in the proverbial you-know-what, because suddenly we have an awful lot of things to do at this committee. Steve?
So I don't see why this committee wouldn't review a cannabis vendor any differently than we would review alcohol.
Well, the difference is they don't, for reasons I don't understand, they do not need conditional use permits to locate in our neighborhoods, whereas alcohol does.
But is that the only thing that we're allowed to review is CUPs?
I'm not saying that. I'm not reviewed any cannabis, anything's ever. And there's no reason why we can't.
Yeah. So I'm suggesting that we should.
Yes.
For 2 reasons. One, it's quality of life in our community. Right. And as Chris rightfully pointed out, there are public health issues here as well.
Absolutely.
Very real ones. Yeah.
Absolutely, but I was trying to also say, remember South LA, which is a broader thing than just South LA, has this special district that requires conditional use permits for liquor stores. Not all of Los Angeles. It's unique to South LA. And I don't know why that hasn't been amended to include cannabis. Anyway,
Because
Oh.
Karen Bass is mayor and not an activist anymore. The reason
And
why
you know,
we have
the
those
law was
restrictions
passed
is
by
because
Karen,
of
I know that.
Karen Bass's work.
Yes, it was Karen's work. Well, not just Karen's work, but I mean, that's when I met Karen. We were walking the neighborhoods. But anyway, Dolores.
Hi everyone. I agree with Steve. Simply because we haven't done it in the past doesn't mean that we can't do it. And the very reason I have is because we had two cannabis places in South Jefferson Park, 11th Ave and Jefferson, and Jefferson, and then down by Western and Jefferson, where we had drug wars, where they were selling stuff other than cannabis. And so they had shootouts down there at 11th Ave. So we can ask about security and other things that might affect our community.
Okay, yeah, and I feel like I can't say yes more often. It's just yes. It's just that we ended up, because we had half the meetings as usual this whole spring for 6 months, that we're playing catch up on all of the cases.
Okay,
So it's a
let's catch
yes. It's a yes. And
Well,
last,
we can put them on notice that we're watching and we're concerned.
Well, actually, Dolores, they reached out to us. It came in through the info at UNNC, and they reached out and said, we're, contemplating using this location for cannabis shop. We'd like to reach out. We'd like to meet with you. So
that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
It's fine. That's fine. So again, we have a meeting in 2 weeks, which we now have this letter. We also have, assuming it's still on, Teresa, the return of
the landscape ordinance.
No, McCarty.
Oh, is that?
That was tentatively in 2 weeks.
Oh, for him to come back. That's right. And let us know what's going on.
Right. So I'm just saying, but that doesn't mean we can't do this too. It's just.
Well, maybe we just limit everybody to 15 minutes or half an hour and just keep going.
Okay, that's fine. Anyway, I'm gonna say, last but not least, there is a public hearing on Hank's Wilshire Toe, which is not Hank anymore, and not even Steve anymore, but Rick Wilshire Toe, but the Wilshire Toe on Washington Boulevard. The hearing is on the 14th in the morning on Zoom. I will send out, I have to scan, the only thing we have is a piece of paper, so I have to make it.
The zoning administrator?
Yes, and it's a Zoom hearing.
And did we vote?
We voted to adamantly oppose it.
Okay.
But, and I will, that's what I'm saying, so I have to write a kind of seriously long letter. There's still, at the moment, they're still evaluating it based on the existing conditional use permit for the office and dispatch, and they are not looking at it in terms of the prior conditional use permit, which is for the quote remote, which is where all these cars are. So we've just.
What day is that, Laura?
The 14th, a week from today. And so I'm gonna have to have executive approve, a letter. I mean, I'm gonna go back to the recording, but I haven't done the letter yet. I know, Steve, you're not raising your hand to volunteer to do that letter, I'm sure.
I am not, but I am,
No.
I cannot write that letter.
No,
But
I'm gonna have
I would
to do that.
appreciate if, when the letter is written and sent, if it could be simultaneously posted on the UNNC website, so that those of us, so that those of us in the community who want to participate in this process have that letter as our guide.
Oh, okay, so I have to do it even sooner. Go ahead, Teresa.
Right, I just want to say that our new communications chair, Hunter, and I have been working with our web master, I don't like saying that, but our lady who manages our website.
Web manager, let's say.
A web manager, that's good. And we now have a drop down where we're gonna store all our letters. So we haven't put anything in it yet, but we have a space for all of the community letters, including the CIO.
That would be great. And if it's not ready for that yet, then I request that you send it to the mailing list for UNNC again, so that the community can be involved in an informed way.
Okay, my task has gotten harder. Okay, but yes, you're absolutely right. I'm just trying to figure out how fast it can be done so that the officers have a chance to approve the letter. And Paula has to sign it. I mean, it's a whole thing.
Yep.
But, okay, but in any case, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, this is a police tow yard where, I mean, I have to say, back in 1984 was the very first planning or zoning hearing I ever went to. And it was a nuisance and blight for Angeles Vista on both sides of Washington with car repairs in the middle of the street. I mean, it's just horrible. And eventually the Community Redevelopment Agency purchased their remote lot. That's where the Gramercy housing apartments are now. That's where we meet for governing board, and acquired a lot on West Gage for this operation to have most of the cars towed, specifically to remove, using taxpayer dollars, to remove blight and nuisance from our community. So it's come full circle where the Wilshire Tow has the opportunity to acquire the parcels to the east of it, and they moved in without yet having approval. And it's already cars, it's just creating the same nuisance it had years ago. So
Just one last thing, Laura.
no
sorry.
problem.
I
mean, no
Benny Potter
problem.
Park is hosting a Splish Splash event from 11 to 2
Oh.
on Friday.
Okay, Splish Splash at the park where we're sitting at South Sea's house. I don't know what Splish Splash is, although it sounds fun for kids.
A slide,
A slide, oh, right, I've seen the pictures, a slide into the water at Benny Potter Park. 11 to
11 to
3?
2.
11 to 2.
Right.
And any other community events too, that are more fun than a Wilshire Tow Zoom hearing? Okay then, thank you very much, and that will be it.
We're adjourned.
Okay, we are adjourned. I'm going to turn off the
Pleasure to
YouTube.
see all the participants.